Welcome back to the Power of X, where we test and not guess. So, to unlock your true X factor. Today, we're talking about our BioCode Fit program and the phase one, the first step of the BioCode method. So, Joe, Megan, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. So our whole method is test, tailor, train, transform. And the first thing is testing, which we've had episodes on DNA tests and all that stuff. We're not necessarily going to dive into testing today. But at the same time, when we look at a program, if I do any form of testing, there is a time frame until that test does get back. So the thought process is, do I wait until all this gets back, or do I start doing something now? Well, our philosophy is start doing something now, right? There's no better time than now to start something. And Megan can attest to this over and over again, but most people just get stuck with, what direction do I go? Look, I want to lose weight. Look, I don't like where I'm at. Look, I want to start going to the gym. I want to start dieting. I just don't know what to do. I see all these Instagram reels and everybody has the right direction for me, but nothing just right. They get that deer in the headlights where they just freeze and they do nothing. Or it's like that squirrel that runs across the street that comes back across the street and then it gets hit by the car. That's what most people do in the fitness business. They decide to choose a route that typically is too extreme. It's too hard to be compliant to. It's not sustainable. So we're going to kind of talk about that first 6 to 8 weeks of building routines, building habits, building momentum, getting excited about it, learning about yourself, kind of what that looks like.
I'd like to, just think about it like this is with if you're doing a project or a remodel, for example, or a restoration, a lot of clients, and I'd like you guys to speak to this, is a lot of clients that come to you may not have an extensive background. And if they do, the reason they're coming to you is because they've been out of that routine for a
Absolutely.
while. And so that first phase really is foundational. So almost, kind of that remodel or restoration project where we've really got to assess where we're at with different things, with nutrition, with fitness, with mobility, with injuries, right? And so that phase one allows us an opportunity to really take a slower approach necessary to get a good start. Just like you were saying, I mean, people jump into 75 hard or pick your warrior program and really go too hard too fast.
Yep.
And so that first phase really allows the client to establish some baselines, get some metrics, and really truly you, the coaches, gives you, and that's what I want to hear about, is gives you the opportunity to really set the foundation and level set where they go from zero.
Right, because most people take that approach and say, okay, total demolition, get rid of the house and start from scratch. Like, no. You just need new cupboards.
What were you
Megan
saying?
wants to,
Well, I'm
Megan.
saying that is the point of having a strategy call.
Yep.
So the first step, people are nervous. Like, this is something new. They don't know where to start. So you have a strategy call with a coach. You sit there with a strategy coach. We hear your pain points and like where you are at. So if you don't know where to start, this whole thing, it could be very overwhelming. So like a veteran coach just sits and we find out like where you're at, what you're doing, what you've tried in the past, what has failed, what your why is. And then it's up to our job to hear all of that and find out what you're capable of doing. So like if working out is something that you are not used to, we might need to see where you are at with your mobility. We're not going to throw you into the wolves and not, you're not going to just be thrown out there and be like, okay, you got to work out 5 days a week. This is what you need to do. You have to have protein. You have to do. Some people don't know sources of carbs, don't know sources of protein. So really it is just have faith in us, because as a coach, we are not going to let you down. So the strategy call is the first and most important thing. And then from there, we will develop a plan to get you there. And within those first 6 weeks, it is just focusing on little changes, because I have noticed from experience, people are so excited that they want to like get in and do more and more and more. But if you throw too much at yourself, you haven't really adapted it as a lifestyle, and you'll get overwhelmed, and then typically you fail.
Yeah. Then the burnout kicks in, and Yeah.
Mhm.
First step isn't to go buy $250 worth of new clothes and shoes. And, that is
One
not,
thing,
that is not step one.
one thing I heard you say, Megan, that I've had experience with myself personally, but also I've seen a lot from other people that you mentioned talking about their why. And I'm curious how many times people come to you with a stated objective that's on the right, but after you visit with them, talk with them, really their why more aligns over to the left and left, right, whatever, up, down. But tell me about what you
We will
said there
kind
about
of
your
like
why.
peel, because a lot of people are like, oh, I just want to, but it's like, no, I want to hear, like, I will peel back the layers to find out like your deep inner core why. And then as a coach, when you're like, oh, I mean, it's not like I use it against you, but I remind you of your why and I remind you of your why. And I'm like, when your why is so deep, the times where you lack motivation, then that why comes back and you're like, yeah, like I can do this. It's just like trying to get better 1% every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. I think that really stood out as and I, from a personal standpoint, but also for a client, but also, I mean, they may not even really truly I completely understand it. It's something that's so profound and powerful that will help with the process.
Oh,
Absolutely.
that's what a coach is. And we want good coaches, here at X Factor Lab. And I mean, I don't think you become a coach unless you really internally, like my why is to change lives. Like when I joined this mission, like we want to change a million lives.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's where people have to start off with. What are what I would say they're, establish the non-negotiable habits. Like one of the things that you might want to do is, hey, I'm going to commit to X amount of water a day. Just non-negotiable, right? That's a simple, easy thing to do that you're totally in control of. Most people, you can read books on all day long. Most people walk around just dehydrated, right? Establish, I'm going to start drinking X amount of water. One of the big things we're really big on is changing habits to a whole food nutritional plan. Like just start eating single ingredient foods, versus something out of a window or out of a package, right? I mean, it just, right. If we can just do something like that, right? It doesn't come out of a window. It doesn't, we aren't opening it out of a package. It's actually something that is cooked. It's this lost art
No
of
more gas
actually,
station sushi.
right. Of actually cooking. Like, like I get it. Like people used to chart the stars and, map the earth doing that. Again, that's a lost cause. But like cooking has become that. Like, how did you take these 5 ingredients and make them something edible? Like people don't cook anymore,
Yeah.
so right. So we're not going to nourish. So again, these are these non-negotiables. Start setting, hey, maybe dinner is going to be cooked for the family or I'm going to start, getting up a little bit early and making breakfast and it's going to have so much protein and right. So if we start these little non-negotiables, again, these are totally things that are in our control. A lot of times we worry about the things that are outside of our control. Yes, we can get so many steps in a day, right? I mean, if you right now there's step counters and all this stuff, maybe you set, you know, maybe it's 7,000, maybe it's not even 10,000 or 12,000, maybe it's 7,000, something that you can just obtain because what happens when we set the bar so high and I'm going to drink a gallon of water a day. Maybe it is a gallon, but maybe it's not. And if you miss the gallon of water that first day and you're like, oh man, I'm already behind. You don't want to get behind too soon. We have to set these little baby steps so that we can, again, more and more momentum. And then we add a little bit more, and then we add a little bit more, and then we add a little bit more. We have to understand, getting to the gym and also understanding the myths about fitness. You do not have to do this every day. You do not need to wake up, sleep deprived to drag your sleep deprived butt into the gym just to get your grind, so that you can, get these results because you watch some, motivational thing that said, sleep is for the weak. No, sleep is for the very intelligent, So, so we have to look out for these myths that are out there. Where do you guys see that coming in, especially Megan? Like, when we like sometimes we have to tell people to kind of pump the brakes, like just stop for a second. Like, you're at step 15, right now. You're already doing what you should be doing a year from now, and this is your first week.
Well, I mean, it is like progression is earned, so when it comes to like working out, I'm always like, you have to like start, we have to actually see your biomechanics, see where your mobility is at. Because if you're overly tight and you're just going in and lifting heavy, I'm going to hurt you further down the line with this programming.
Yep.
So it's like when we sit there and you have like your measurements, and we also have like an assessment that they have to do, it allows us to develop like the great program, the perfect program for them. As far as like with nutrition, one of the things everybody comes, if you are in your 40s and you're especially a woman, I have to drill into women's heads all the time. Like carbs are not bad, and sometimes, a lot of people do not want to track, but I'm like, hey, like Jim, you're in finances. Like, do you need to track your ledger to know where you're at financially?
Well, quite frankly, more people could benefit from it.
Well, exactly. So like when we are in a program, like you might not have to like start off like, if tracking scares the crap out of you, we could do little baby steps and just focus on eating, with portion control. Like as I said, we meet you where you're at. But like if your why is really strong and you have a goal of, let's say it's a wedding, or if you have a goal that you want to look a certain way, well, I would love to say we all have magic wands, but we don't. So like even learning how to like track your food and learning about macros, so it is kind of putting together the whole picture and the plan for what will work for them, of what they can sustain.
I understand that tracking your food, people don't want to. I understand. I don't want to track my food.
Yeah.
I don't want to balance my checkbook. I don't want to put gas in my car. I don't want to do any of those things. But it's just, I mean, Jim, if somebody came to you and said, man, I just, we make a bunch of money, but I just don't know where it goes. And you go, well, do you balance your checkbook? Well, no. I mean, you're like, well, of course you're going to have issues, right? It's no different than food. Now, God's honest truth, do I track my food right now? No. I mean, I can look at a meal and say, that's 737 calories at this point. I've been tracking it for so long. I know pretty much where I end up every day. Now, are there times I hone it in a little bit more? Absolutely. If I'm wanting to go into a cut for the summer, if I want to do show prep, yes, I am going to start tracking that. Now, to start off, I am a firm believer of starting to track. Right now, we have everything on your phones. You can scan this, do this. It can tell you everything you're doing. Right, a coach can tell you word for word how to do it. But I mean, just tracking what you're doing. Statistically speaking, 50 to 60% of people who so-called even track their food don't even track it accurately.
Well, and it does depend on what their goal is, because
Yep.
if you want to look a certain way, you are going to have more calories in a build to be able to put on muscle. Well, that
Yep.
might mean you might have like more body fat around your stomach. But then when we go into the cut phase, then when that fat comes off, you're actually going to have the muscle looking how you want to.
Absolutely.
So I always tell women, I'm like, you always say you want a big booty, because it seems like now, like, lucky for me, like a butt is something I've always had. But
Sir
like now
Mix-a-Lot was
it's
onto
in.
something.
Now it's like in where girls are like, I want to have like a bigger butt. And I'm like, okay, but then they only want to take in like 1,400 calories. And I'm like, you can't, it's not going to happen. That's science. So I think a big myth that people really do need to know is like, you cannot build the physique you want if you are not having enough calories. And as a coach, we can't really help you with that if that is your goal, if you're not willing to track those calories.
Yeah.
So let me back up just a moment. Something that you've touched on, and I think the TikTok universe is screaming loud, and I don't think it has a whole lot of science to back it up, but I've seen a lot about detox and this and that, and we actually have a phase, a bullet point in our brochure about metabolic reset. So maybe one of you, both of you, talk us through that, because we've put that in there. It's a critical component. Megan, you mentioned, we don't know where people are coming from. Joe, you've talked about whole food. So tell me about more about the metabolic reset in phase one?
Yeah. So people think, well, I got a detox. So they do this, 3-day, 5-day, 10-day product juice cleanse. I don't know, crap your brains out for 10 days and you're detoxed or whatever. I personally, this is where I fall in. Your liver and kidney detoxes every day. If we give the body garbage, it's going to constantly be recycling garbage. If we give the body what it needs and nourishment, again, your kidneys and liver again, if it's healthy functioning, is going to do what we need. It's like, if I have a bucket of water full of mud and I start pumping a bunch of clean water into it, eventually it's going to overflow and it's going to flush out all the mud and dirt, and you're going to have a clean bucket of water. So ideally in those first 6 to 8 weeks, this is where we do just have to clean up our diet. Just like I was saying earlier, I mean, if we can minimalize processed, packaged foods, if we can minimize those significantly, start changing those little habits, start adding, lean proteins, vegetables, fruits, carbs, getting the nourishment that our body wants from a single ingredient food source. And here's what I mean by single ingredient food source. Chicken nuggets are not single ingredients. Yes, it is chicken. But like I went to the grocery store the other day and I looked at the ingredients and it had 23 ingredients. At least the first ingredient was chicken, but 23 ingredients. Again, there's so many more fillers and additives. But again, if I had steak, broccoli, and a sweet potato, that is 3 ingredients, right? Those are single ingredient foods. So if we can start incorporating those, drinking more water, staying properly hydrated, your body is going to go through a detoxification process because you're not putting a bunch of garbage in, and we're going to start flushing that out. That also comes with, exercise, getting your steps in, doing all of this metabolically. The body goes into more of a reset. You're almost priming the pump for, hey, look, something is about to change, versus just throwing a ton of stuff at it. Then the body kind of goes into like a revolt almost, where it's like, wait, this is too much too soon.
Have either of you guys read up on or studied, I think it's called autophagy?
Yes.
Where there's another craze right now is fasting, and fasting.
Yep.
While I'm not against it, and I've done it myself, but that's extremely interesting, and I mean, just really amazes me, our body. So
yeah, we're about to get really controversial here, Jim. So there's a thought process, and then there's also human randomized control trials that prove the evidence, right? There's a thought process that, okay, so autophagy is cellular maintenance, right? And if we fast, we increase this motion of, there is a mechanism of autophagy. It's basically cellular maintenance. It is going in, cleaning up cells that shouldn't be there. There's a process called apoptosis, of killing off of dead cells, again, cancerous cells, mutated cells. Well, autophagy goes in and cleans that up. So the idea behind is like fasting and things like that. Now, again, is intermittent fasting a tool? Yes, it is an absolute tool. It's a valid tool, but I will state this for the record: it is not magical.
I feel like it works sometimes better for men than women.
Well, but check this out. There's been studies of this. Again, there are randomized control trials on this. This group fasted and equated at the end of the week of X amount of calories. And this group went into a calorie restriction diet and had the exact same amount of calories for a week. The amount of autophagy was dead even and equal. Calorie deficits also increase autophagy.
Sure.
So what does that mean? Well, Joe, I like fasting. Awesome. Do it. Well, Joe, I don't like fasting. Then don't, but don't say I hate fasting, but I have to do it to get autophagy, because that's what the system does right now. Right. It's like, if I drove to Kansas City right now in my maroon vehicle and came to the conclusion that maroon vehicles are what get you to Kansas City, I would technically be right, but I would be assuming white vehicles can't get me there and blue vehicles can, it's just, the interstate got me to Kansas City. The calorie restriction that you did with fasting and the calorie restriction you did with just calorie restriction diet triggered autophagy.
Yeah.
It wasn't the mechanism. Or I did carnivore and I triggered autophagy. No, you're in a calorie deficit, so you triggered autophagy.
Yeah, for sure. Megan?
And I do agree. Megan, you're totally right. I would
because
say
it kind of disrupts
I
hormones.
see better results with men.
And it can drop like
Yes.
the T3 in women.
I totally agree.
So I know personally for myself, fasting is not the way that I should go. And I've also even found that out with the testing. So I get to eat breakfast.
But that's what, right? But, so Jim said, these are these things that were, well, I'm going to do this 72-hour fat. Well, yes. And I lost 15 pounds not eating for 72 hours. Well, duh. I mean,
that's math.
I mean, that is literally math. But then again, are we trying to lose weight over a 72-hour period of time? No. Right. Where do I want to be at by next year? Where do I want to be at by, the next 60, 90 days? Which, really kind of brings me to the aspect of, again, having these realistic expectations of what you're about to experience. I have a client. Now, we are really big on like body composition, skeletal muscle mass, body fat percentage, all these things. That's where we have a Hume body pod for clients. There's InBodies, there's DEXA scans. I have a client that literally 2 days ago did her 4-week check-in with me. And every 4 weeks, I have them jump on my InBody scale. This gal in 30 days lost 2 pounds, right? And I'm the NPC Midwest Trainer of the Year, 2 of the last 5, and I could only get her to lose 2 pounds in 30 days. And right, she goes and tells her neighbor, check this out. I've been working with Joe. I lost 2 pounds in 30 days. Isn't that awesome? They're all going to be like, did you not try? Like maybe Joe's not doing the right thing. But the 2 pounds is not telling the story. She also gained 2 pounds of muscle. She is down 4 inches in her waist. She's down 3% body fat. So if we're just looking at the scale weight, now men have an issue with it, but women primarily have a big issue because whatever you've been told, your worth on this planet is based on scale weight moving down, and you've been lied to, and that is absolutely not true. My wife, literally January 10th to Monday of this week, has gained 7 pounds in 5 weeks, but her body fat percentage went down almost 1%.
Wow.
I always say that so many times the scale will actually, if you are so focused on the scale and not measurements, you will actually sabotage yourself before you see results. And a lot of times I always tell people, and I've noticed I have taken so many measurements of my life, but so I always do the narrow and around the belly button. And I notice like the weight might start to drop. Like it goes first from like from the natural waist, but then your belly might look bigger, but it's actually, if you just stay in the program, it is working. So, but I said the scale, I have seen so many people who were just like on the brink of it, and then they get in their head about it, and then all of a sudden they want to binge eat. Like, oh, this isn't working. I'm like, no, trust me. I'm like, I know you want to right now. And then next, they're like, girl, you're right. You're right. And I'm like, of course I'm right. Like, this is why I'm the coach. Like, I do this all the time. And this is the coolest thing though, with phase 1 of ours, if you get on the advanced program that we do, we ship a Hume, and I'll let you explain that, Jim, because I know you love your Hume, but we ship that scale to you. So you actually have kind of like your DEXA scan that you can keep track of.
Right. The Hume body pod is just it's a recent techie scale. It's got a handle that you pull up and hold, and it's got some electrodes that measures different body currents and pulse and things like that. But it also has technology built into it that measures your body fat and muscle composition. Now, I believe wholeheartedly, 110%. I've done the InBody. I've done the Hume. I have a Hume here just behind me at home. And I've also done the DEXA scan. The DEXA scan, in my opinion, is the gold standard. It's the clinical tool. You lay on a table and it's got an arm that scans over you. It's a type of X-ray machine that measures different densities. And so a lot of medical facilities use that for women, especially to measure their bone density, because as women age, bone density tends to fade unless we're doing some strength workout. But we'll address that another time. But the DEXA scan as the gold standard, and then very close behind that, I think, is the in-body scan, which Joe uses at his gym. And so what I did was just kind of a personal test of all of these. And what I concluded is if DEXA is the gold standard, then I want to do that once, maybe twice a year. In fact, I'm due to go right now, but I've been avoiding it because I've got a little bulk on me through the winter. But then also compare that to then the InBody, and then compare that to the Hume. Now, the reason we ship the Hume Body Pod is not because it's the most accurate. The reason we ship it and include it in the BioCode program is because now we have a measurement tool, because a lot of our coaches coach remotely, and we have now a tool that we can assess and measure the trends on body composition, muscle mass, and the trends on body fat, and then of course the scale weight. Now that doesn't obviously we'd like to do some measurements, right? Some waist, some biceps, things like that. But the Hume Body Pod gives us the same measuring stick that our coaches are used to. Our coaches are competent in coaching with that data. And then especially if they're remote. So the Hume Body Pod is something that I think is just another tool. We're not claiming that it's the most accurate or anything like that, but we're utilizing that measuring stick to assess trends for our clients.
Yeah. And that's where, when we track progress, when we're looking, it's that you can't expect what you can't inspect, right? It's why you just can't lose weight. Well, how much you eating? I don't know. Not that much. Well, again, unless we're measuring this. So, it's an overwhelming time for a lot of people to say, where do I begin? And again, that's where, again, having a coach is going to help a ton. Let's just say you didn't. And again, could people do all this stuff yeah, absolutely. Does, having a coach help? Absolutely. There's certain things that humans have terrible times with. Patience, I want to work out and have the next person see me say, man, look at this giant transformation that you just had in 24 hours. It's not going to happen. Matter of fact, it is never going to happen as fast as you want it to. That's why, again, with check-ins, I firmly believe in pictures. And these pictures are for you. These pictures are not to be all over, because most people can't stand taking pictures. But yet we also don't see the small changes. It's like those time lapse things of like glaciers. Those were taken over decades. Like, Jim, do you remember going bald?
Actually, yes, but
I don't remember. All of a sudden, it had been like 9 months. I hadn't seen my friends, because I went bald at 19 years old. I mean, I started at 19.
I was right there too.
And I would come home and I'd see people that hadn't seen me forever, and they're like, dude, are you thinning? I'm like, no, you're crazy. But I didn't see the change.
Right.
Well, that's the same thing happens with, taking pictures, and, we see ourselves all the time, but it's always that person that hasn't seen you in 2 or 3 weeks or 2 or 3 months that are like, man, are you losing weight? Have you been lifting? Right. And you're like, man, I'm finally, someone's noticing, because we just don't see the change. So there is a method to this. In the first 6 to 8 weeks, this is the main focus that me personally, this is what I want for my clients. I want habits, routines. I want momentum and motivation.
Yeah.
And if you lose weight, great.
So that's where I think phase one really, really sets the foundation. And it's that reset we talked about, but it's also the foundation for going forward. And that is something that is so, so important for everybody to understand. All exercise and diet programs are just like bathing. they're temporary unless you continue doing them.
Right.
And that's where something I really want to touch on is, Joe, that you touched on, building healthy habits and how we do that with the BioCode Scorecard. I can I'll review the categories for everybody, and then we can kind of dive into those. We've talked about many of them. Fitness and exercise, so a regular exercise program. Nutrition, we've harped on that quite a bit. Hydration, mental well-being, restoration, personal development, and community. So let's just, pick one of those, and why are these things important? Why do we focus on them? And why do we have a scorecard?
Well, again, you can't expect what you can't inspect, and that is something that you can look at and you can score yourself on nutrition. Did I get my workout in? Did I get my hydration in? Personally, I think one of the best ones in there is personal development. You are where you are right now because of what you've been doing and how you've been thinking. So all of a sudden, right, if we want to go to the next level, we have to not change who you are, but again, you have to become a different version. You have to start, a different belief system. We have to start doing different things. And guess what doing different things is? It's challenging. It's outside of our comfort zone. But if we don't embrace some form of self accountability, do I want to just sit here and harp on people to be accountable? You didn't do your scorecard. You didn't do your scorecard. The scorecard is not for me. The scorecard is not for Megan. The scorecard is not for a coach. The scorecard is for you to get a handle on your life, to start moving you in the direction of the goals that you say that you want.
So I would put it this way. The scorecard is very, very powerful. We all have probably in our lives gone through periods of extreme discipline and very attention to detail periods of time where we had a lot on our plate and we had to do what we had, we had a list, whatever. But it's the awareness of it and then the self check or the self accountability. So you guys as coaches, I would venture to say that probably one of the number one functions you serve your client is the capacity of holding them accountable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the scorecard does that. And so the personal development, as you were talking about that, I thought about epigenetics, and we all have the different traits, right? So let's just talk about discipline. We all have some level of discipline, and it's our environment that allows us to turn that up or maybe fade out of it. And how often I've caught my own personal life, I've been a little lazy lately. Now, I'm a very, very disciplined person when I want to be, and when I'm on a program or doing something and I've got a strong why. But it's that ability to self-check and self-regulate, because that's truly the long-term success, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And discipline, this is another take on that. I think most people are very disciplined because routine, you are thinking, what are you talking about? There's always a guy that never misses a Bears game. There's always a guy that never misses the, Married with Children or whatever show's on now. I have no idea. They never miss, their, beer dart league on Friday. They're very
poker on Wednesday.
Right. Yeah. They're very, very disciplined when it comes down to things like that. Now, I'm kind of joking, but I'm not, because routines can also be very bad. Sure. We got to make sure we're getting into a good routine that is in alignment with the goals that we want, and I think that's, a lot of it is we have these goals, but our daily actions are not in alignment with the goals that we say. And then that's where the disconnect comes in. And that's where frustration kicks in. And that's where, again, the freezing and the stalling and, and then the giving up and the quitting phase is very, very easy because all of this stuff just takes change. But if you follow a particular method with just, again, little by little in the right direction, add a little bit more, add a little bit more, add a little bit more, have accountability. I would go as far as saying some of the happiest people on this planet are always being held accountable. And the people who are usually the most miserable, they just want to wing it every day. And it's like, well,
drifters.
hey, let's see what happens. You know?
Well, my favorite saying of all times is your body conquers what your mind controls.
Yeah.
So mentally, if you can strengthen your mind, you can get through anything. And that is kind of the BioCode scorecard. If you did that every single day, even if you couldn't give yourself great points, but you still stuck with the habit of like completing that BioCode scorecard, I promise you, by the end of the 12 weeks, I mean, we would give your money back. Like, do you know what I mean? Like if you filled that out every single
Right.
day and you tried and you focused on the improvement of it, that BioCode scorecard, it'll get you to your end results.
Yeah. And that's where I think people have to set up those expectations of what is these first 12 weeks going to look like? What are the first 6 to 8, obviously? You know, but again, I think people just set this out where I got to lose 20 pounds in the next, 6 to 8 weeks. And then another thing is they're not, if they're not tracking the small successes along the way, they're going to view success as failure, because I see this all the time. I have somebody that wants to lose, 20 pounds and they lost 10. And they're like, oh, it was a complete waste of time. I failed. No, time out, stop. You went to the gym 3 to 4 days a week. You increased your steps. You increased your water. You changed your food habits. You lost 10 pounds.
But I'm actually saying you actually probably lost 18 pounds of
right,
fat.
right.
You gained this amount of muscle, and that's kind of where
but they
that
can't. Yeah, but they
in.
can't compartmentalize.
Yeah.
But I didn't hit this, and it's like no. Like you've self-admitted changed all these things, and you have all this momentum build up. But they get this. They're so ingrained on this one little goal versus the process of what it takes to change all these habits. And it's just that process, because I will tell people this, and this is something a lot of people, this is a huge problem in the industry. I'm a bodybuilder. I have taken my physique to the top 1% of what people will never be on this entire planet. And guess what? I was miserable. People, if I could just look like that, I'd be happy. No, you won't. I'm telling you, you won't be. If you think, fitting into those jeans before you had kids is going to bring ultimate happiness, I'm telling you, it's not. It's a goal. It's something to shoot for. But again, once you get there, it's not like, okay, I can quit. I did it. No. When will I stop doing what I'm doing? When I'm dead.
Yeah.
We are building a routine.
I do actually want to just say, like, you sit there and so many times people come to you with a goal, and it typically is losing weight, right?
Yep.
But then they work with you and then you see them and all of a sudden it's like they have more, it's not even about the weight. They have more confidence because they committed to something, and that increases there's so many other changes that like take place through this journey than just what the scale reads. And that is like the beautiful part of a transformation, because it's just not a physical transformation. It's like an internal transformation.
Absolutely. Megan,
Yeah.
we have a client that that you've worked with too. He lost 140 some pounds. All of a sudden, first it was just, I just want to keep up with my kids. Mm-hmm. He gets in, next thing you know, he's like, I want to do an obstacle course. Next thing it is I'm going to quit my job and start a new business. And it was just like all these things in his life just started getting better and better, and, launched a business, doing very, very successful. And it was because he started losing some weight. It was a stepping stone.
Probably a better parent.
Absolutely.
He inspired others along the way. Other people probably jumped on and wanted to change their life. It's beautiful. It's so much more than just physical.
Absolutely.
So what I hear you talking a lot about is the mental benefits. And so this kind of segment went off from personal development. So I've got some ideas on what I would recommend new to the program people would study or do. What are some personal development tips, tricks, reading material? Where do you coach people to start? Is it
gratitude?
But how? Attitude, sure, great.
No,
but
gratitude. How? Gratitude. Like in the morning, start with your positive thoughts. What are 5 things you're grateful for?
So there's the tip maybe write down the 5 things, but
journal.
I want actual actionable things, because a lot of people, float ideas that are unreasonable to others. And I know, Megan, I know you're chomping at the bit. You want to, yeah, but I, I want to hear what are the actionable practices and recommendations. Like, if you're going to recommend a book, what book? What kinds of books?
Yes. So, and some people are, I'm just not a reader. Well, statistically, like 65% of our population will not read a book after they get out of high school. I think that's dumb. And that's why a lot of people never change their life much, because they keep thinking, it's like, imagine if you kept thinking the way you did when you were in high school. I strongly encourage most of my clients, all of them, to read Atomic Habits right away. Improving your life by 1% a day, over time. It's not because it does. Now, again, some people aren't read. I understand that, but become one, yes, I understand you're not a reader, but you're also frustrated with your life and you're not where you want to be at. Maybe you need to change something and start becoming a reader.
Oh my gosh. I could name off like The Mountain Is You. Right now I'm reading The Power of Positive Thinking. Atomic Habits. I've listened to that book 4 different times. I love David Goggins. He's not for everybody, but I do like him. But
Well,
also,
yeah. I mean, it cuts the excuses, right? I mean, he's not. He's a little vulgar, but at the same time, being direct is sometimes what I need to hear, right? I was reminded of a scenario. So the Olympics just finished up, and you guys know I was a speed skater and trained at a high level, and I absolutely love. My son played ice hockey, both my boys. I love Miracle on Ice and Herb Brooks. Love it. Okay. But if you go watch that movie, it kind of reminds me of that movie with Tom Cruise. You Can't Handle the Truth, because Herb Brooks would rip you a new one and strip you down, and nobody cared about your feelings. Yeah, sure. You feel a certain way and you've got your feelings hurt. Great. We'll deal with that later. Right now we're working on this. And I love that. I need that.
Up a podcast. I'm coming right.
So, from a personal development standpoint, my thoughts would be to get new people into health related topics and growth related topics. I love Atomic Habits. That's a great one. Let's shift gears and talk about community, because I think once you start engaging in trying to model these things and trying to do these personal development things, you have to engage in community. And now community can be a couple different things. Community can be giving back and, maybe like Megan and shoveling the whole street of driveways, or it could be just engaging with other like-minded people. So let's talk about, let's split that up and let's talk about that and how that impacts the program and the progress, because it's on the scorecard. It's obviously, we think it's important enough to have there. Joe, Megan, give me, each of you, give me your thoughts on community.
The community aspect is crucial. You want to change your life. You want to start improving habits. You want to start doing this. You're going to start eating, and you're going to start bringing your lunch versus going out with other people eating and doing all the different stuff that other people do. Other people are not going to like that. I'm just going to tell you, people that you love, trust, like, known forever, they're going to call you out on it. Every single success movie in the history of mankind is the same story. Somebody wanted to change. Everybody that knew them said they were stupid and you're crazy and that's not going to work. They don't listen. They do it anyways. And then at the end of the movie, they all say, we knew you could do it. We're so proud of you. Right? Like Rudy. Every movie is literally, every success story is that story, just a different version. But that's what happens in every success story. You are insane if you don't think it's going to happen to you. You're going to start losing weight and your family's going to say, don't be losing too much weight. You're going to do, oh, look, someone brought their chicken and rice to lunch. Oh, they can't go have beers with us. Yes, they are going to do that because it bugs them.
Your vibe attracts your tribe. You might have to venture out and find a new community, but hey, they're going to open you up to things.
Yes, yes. And so am I saying leave your family, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying just know it's going to happen. I have a client that lost 150 pounds, and she had a miserable time with her family the entire time. They would at every function would just belittle her. She's losing too much weight. I don't think you're healthy, and all this. I mean, she got off medication. She restored.
She lost how much?
150 pounds.
And they thought she was losing too much?
Oh yeah, she restored full vision from losing weight. She got off a bunch of medications, but yeah, she was losing it too fast. All you care about is the gym, all the different stuff that everybody does, right? And then now all of a sudden she lost 150 pounds. Now they're asking her for help. I need to do the same thing. That is what you're going to go through. Now, so, how can we mitigate that? We've created a community of other clients that you can share success stories. You can get positive, reinforcement. I'm telling you, no, I don't think anybody's strong enough to go up against the world by themselves.
Hey, Joe, Megan's got a roll.
Oh, yes.
I gotta go.
Megan, give me your 2 cents real quick on the community. You said your vibe is your tribe. What do you mean by that?
Because if you want to become a certain person with whatever, to better yourself,
healthy,
you start doing these activities, you're going to find other people that do these activities and they have the same mindset, and then they might introduce you to something else, and then it's just and people see, and
it snowballs.
Anything that's positivity, it just radiates, and more people want to be a part of it. And you're always going to have, maybe in the past thing, when someone does change, like what Joe says, I don't want to say someone's being a cancer, but they might not just be there mentally yet to want to do it for themselves, that then they're going to try to put you down. And at the end of it, if you listen to them, then you're pulling back. But people come to us because they want to change, right?
Right.
And if you're going to change, there's a lot of things that you might have to change. And sometimes it is who you surround yourself with.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So there's also something that goes with, I also feel like just being a positive person, and you can always do little things for your community. Yep. They also say it takes a tribe to raise a family, instead of just parents. The community comes together if, a mom or dad can't pick up their school, a community is so important. I mean, I do believe as humans, we are part of a pack just naturally.
Right. Right.
And
I think,
mental health.
Absolutely.
100%. I think one of the things there's also the psychological impact of pouring into others by Megan.
Thank you.
The ability to pour into others has a reciprocating effect without any value exchange, right? Meaning, because I did something for somebody else, I'm getting back. And it wasn't like they paid me or anything like that. I just did something for somebody. That kindness, that gift to them, that support of them comes back to me in multiples without any kind of monetary or value exchange. It's just the habit or the act of pouring into somebody helps me too. But I want to talk a little bit about your environment, because that's, Joe, you were talking about your client that lost all this weight, and how powerful is that? And what I find is that woman obviously had 150 pounds to lose.
Yeah.
And she's healthier for it. But everybody around us, people in our family, oh, you're, I don't know, maybe your face is too skinny, or, whatever. And it's more a reflection of them and how they feel than it is about how you are doing on your journey. So I want everybody to remember that comments made are not necessarily about you. Comments made oftentimes are more about the person making the comment than about you or anything to do with you.
Bingo.
So then finally, the environment of that community, and I think that's kind of the vibe that Megan was trying to propose, is you really do, Park says often, you want to go fast, go solo. If you want to go far, go with a team or go with others. And I think that's this component is, there's so much of this that is intertwined. It's kind of, if I'll draw it to finance, we are no longer independent economies, right? It's a global economy because we are now interdependent. We'll just pick on China because everybody does. But China manufactures a lot, a huge percentage of everything, right? Well, where would America be without a manufacturing source, right? And then where would the manufacturing countries be without somewhere to sell it?
Yep, someone to consume it.
Interdependency is also very much a part of our program and what we mean by community, meaning that we help each other, we support each other, we're going in similar directions. And so that's a huge thing. So lastly, I think what we've talked about fitness and exercise, we've talked a lot about nutrition, we've talked about hydration, we've talked about personal development and community. We've actually you covered sleep a little bit. I think getting minimum 7 hours of sleep if possible. I know a lot of people wear that as a badge of honor, and I did once too. My grandpa used to say, "I'll sleep when I'm dead."
Yep.
Well, you're going to be dead sooner.
Yep.
Because studies show if you don't get enough sleep, that's when your body restores. So we can cover that another time. But the last one I want to cover, and maybe we can end on, is mental well-being. That's that mindfulness, meditation, prayer. I don't want to get overly religious as much as I'm a Christian and profess the gospel of Jesus Christ. There's an element of this that is very powerful for people. And if you're not a religious person, if you don't believe, there's so much benefit to being quiet and some form of meditation. Maybe meditation for some people is going for a walk in the woods. Maybe the being mindfulness is, like Megan said, is gratitude journaling. What are you thankful for?
Yeah.
I'm curious as to how you've used this or seen this in your practice as a coach.
Well, talking about being I think everybody is mindful, but when they do have a free moment, it's scroll their phone, jump on the news. And again, when you do that, again, what are we putting into our head over and over and over again? Democrats, Republicans, boogeyman, blah, 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 war, death, illness. Somebody got sued, somebody got killed, don't go outside, and then it's like, okay, good luck going to bed tonight. You're like, anyways, let's start again tomorrow. So even just getting away from that, like being mindfulness can also be part of your cardio, part of your movement. You know what? Man, go listen to a podcast that you'd like to listen to on what we've talked about, or I don't know, crazy concept. Don't bring your phone and take your wife or your kids or spouse and go have a talk and get out in nature and just shut off and just try to go to bed without instilling all this stuff. I promise you're going to sleep better. Now personally, yeah, I think somebody should look at, more of a spiritual side of things. But even just drowning out the noise is actually practicing mindfulness. Just
right.
Quiet, just having
right.
something of just, try to eat without the television on.
Well, you and I are old enough, Parks maybe not, to remember a time when we went for a run or a walk, or we had to sit, heaven forbid, we had to sit and wait in a doctor's office, and we didn't have a phone to scroll. We didn't have anything to play music. We didn't have anything to, podcast or social media. And we just sat there. And if you were lucky, your doctor had a decent selection of magazines.
Yeah.
Now, they were all about 6 months old.
Yeah.
But you had something. And I think that's true today, is being alone with your thoughts. And I listened to it's a podcast in a book form just recently on a road trip, and somebody asked the person being interviewed, how do you talk about what you're designed for and why you're here, and that's been covered by like authors like Rick Warren, Purpose Driven Life, and all these experts claim to be able to tell you how to figure this out. Okay. And this young woman gave one of the absolute best answers I've ever heard on the topic of figuring out your purpose. We are in an overstimulus world. We are given our thoughts, red thoughts, blue thoughts, healthy thoughts, not healthy thoughts. We are provided what we're supposed to think, supposed to say, how we're supposed to act, what we're supposed to be offended by, and what we're not. This woman, young woman, when asked the question of, well, how do you figure out your purpose? Like, how did you do that? And she said, well, I think it starts with unplugging and just being alone with your thoughts. And if you do that enough, you will start to get your own thoughts and you'll start to notice your own path develops and emerges with your own ideas, because we're constantly fed all this other stuff. How are we supposed to look? How are we supposed to dress? Just back to the family, comments about your weight. And well, that's all external input. And I think the part of our mental well-being is getting alone with our thoughts so that we can figure out who we want to be and how we want to live. I can't tell you, I'm in an industry with my other business where everybody compares everything to everybody else. It's the epitome of keeping up with the Joneses. And I take such a different approach, because how do you want to be? What is the life you want to live? Would you really go buy $1 million house if nobody else did? Like,
Right.
there's so many things like people do because other people are doing them, but they don't even really care about.
Yeah. Don't even know why.
And so I think that plays into this. And I think that's when we talk about a wellness journey in our BioCode program, I think it's important for people to unplug and get alone with their thoughts so that they can have their own ideas and reconnect with their own thoughts.
It is funny the input you get. I was told the other day that I was wearing the wrong color of socks based on the particular color my shoe was. And I go, man, you told the wrong person that. Ask me if I care. I'm lifting. I go, well, you picked the wrong size of biceps to come tell me that. I'm like, what do we, well, my standard is you're puny. I mean, I don't, do I go?
You don't have the biceps to tell me that.
I mean, case in point, it's like we are told, at what point does socks cut, so this is that whole thing of just, guys, become an individual. And again, is this melodramatic? Yes, it is, because I thought we were going to talk about the first 6 to 8 weeks. We are. Like, all of this matters for your success to go on. Right. It is a deeper thing than just check this, and life's going to be great. You have to change the way you're thinking about how you approach all this stuff. And I'm telling you, you can get the right clothes, the right macros, the right plan, understand your test inside and out, know everything about your entire body. But if the mind doesn't comprehend it and understand that it's going to be different and it's going to be challenging, and you have to be up for the challenge, I'm telling you, you will absolutely fall on your face and fail.
100%. That's the environment. That's kind of the scorecard in a nutshell, is building that foundation to weather the storms. Personally, I've experienced the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys. And I think what holds true is, if you're going to have long-term success, it's not because of any individual coaching training plan or nutrition plan. It's building those habits and building the right foundation. So yep. I 100% agree.